What's up, folks? Right now, I'm going to do an interview, and we're talking about crazy restaurant and bar stories right here. This is Carlos Cruz, Travel and News with Carlos Cruz. Check it out on YouTube. And right now, I'm talking with
Austin Baldwin.
Austin. All right, so cool beans, man. You have a cigarette, relax, chill out. So, all right, so tell me some stories, dude. Crazy restaurant shit.
All right, well, craziest restaurant story. I got one, or I got a couple, but probably the first one would be I was working down at a restaurant off of La Vista Road down in Atlanta, and a pizza guy that we brought in to basically revitalize the restaurant was not exactly the epitome of the nicest person, and him and the dishwasher had pretty heated arguments throughout a course of 2 months of the guy working there. And eventually all kind of came to a head one day when he told the kid that he needed to do a better fucking job. But he ended up turning around, and this 17-year-old kid, probably about 6'3", decent build compared to a 53-year-old man barking at him every single day. He kind of had enough, and he walked up to him on the line and goes, well, I mean, if you really want to do this, I mean, we can do this, but I mean, you could talk to me politely. And this guy from Jersey decided to turn around and tell him that he could F off and he could figure out how to do his job better. And the young man took offense to that and pushed the elderly gentleman and decided that it wasn't exactly the way that he wanted to deal with things. So the old guy, the pizza cook, decided to push him back, and by the time that I had turned the corner coming back in from the front of house, I watched this 17-year-old kid lay out a 53-year-old man on his back.
Wow.
And started to proceed to beat him up a little bit. And me and my owner decided to break up the fight, and we were asking him what was going on. And the guy from the pizza cook, he was from Jersey, and he got up and he goes, well, he decided to use a racial slur at that point, and that probably wasn't the smartest thing for him to do.
Nice.
Because before we even knew it, he was back down on his back, knocked out in the middle of the restaurant while we had pizzas cooking. So we had to restrain the kid again. Unfortunately, we had to fire the young gentleman, even though it was a little bit justified, in my opinion, on why the guy was getting knocked out. And had to send him home that night. Paid him a full week's worth of pay. Sent him on his way. We had to wake up the guy in the middle of the back of the restaurant, and he proceeded to say that he couldn't work under these conditions that basically he provided for himself, and decided to walk out that night. So I got to turn around and work a station that I've never worked before in my life. Made pizzas by myself for about 4 hours. And at the same time, I was not a back of house cook. I was a server. So I got to take orders and make the pizzas that I was doing.
That's harsh.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If you love your job, you do what you do. So we turned around, finished out the night, and my last table was a gentleman with 10 kids that walked in last minute, and the last thing that he handed me, his tab came up to $100, and decided to hand me $5 as a tip. And I probably could have handled the situation probably a little bit better. And I turned around him, I hand the $5 back, and I told him, obviously, you need this more than I do. And I took off my apron, I took off everything that I was wearing, dealing with the restaurant, and I shook the hand of my owner, and I said, that's it. Another one would probably be, this is a couple years later into my career when I was a line cook at a fine dining Italian restaurant. And I watched 2 line cooks get into it at the beginning of the day while they were prepping, and I could tell that one of our line cooks was not having a good day. And he decided that he was just going to stay in a bad mood and we all went outside. We all napped and rallied, in a sense, and came back inside. Everyone was in a good mood, and our manager, not realizing what he was doing and thought that he could joke with the line cooks, tapped this guy on the ass with a full handful of checks and asked him if he wanted his money or not.
Jesus.
And our line cook took exception to that and basically decided to, wouldn't say unrightfully so, dog him out a little bit, but also turned around and made it very clear that he did not appreciate somebody coming up to him and slapping him on the ass with a handful of checks. And so they turned around, and in the middle of the shift later on that night, he was so upset about that he put his knife down on the table, his $300 knife that he had just bought, laid it on the table, snapped it in half, and said, "I'll never pick up another knife again," and walked out.
So the manager that slapped him on the ass, like, is he like gay or something, or is this like trying to do like?
No, he was just. We don't know.
Yeah.
He could be. We don't know. That answer was never fully confirmed, but he was definitely ambiguous at the point. But the gentleman did like to joke around in those aspects and like to make sexual innuendos to line cooks and
to male line cooks.
Yeah, male line cooks and male servers.
Gotcha.
So it was never fully agreed upon what he was really about.
Maybe he was the macho gay type. There you go.
Yeah, maybe. Not really.
Yeah.
He definitely had a beer belly, and he definitely didn't take care of himself. But in a sense, I guess you could say that. But I guess I'd say another really, really good one would be watching a professional chef kind of lose his mind on the line. And as a chef and as a professional line cook at that, you know that you have to have some decorum about yourself, and you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. And kind of losing it on the line is extremely frowned upon, especially in fine dining. So we were in the middle of brunch one day, and a chef of mine at the time turned around and got upset after I plated up an Eggs Benedict, which is very, very simple for all those who don't know. It's usually just an English muffin, maybe a slice of ham, a poached egg, and hollandaise sauce over the top. And usually you get a side with it. It's like house potatoes or whatever you want to call it, or whatever you're getting. And it was sitting up in the draw line, basically, is what it really would be. It's sitting up on the hot station where you would pull from to serve the food. And the plate had been sitting up there for a couple minutes. I had already made a comment to my chef that, hey, the eggs have been sitting up there, so we probably need to poach a couple more eggs. And he looked at me and goes, "No, we're not doing that." So I took slight exception to that, and so I dropped 2 more eggs, and he got upset with me for doing so, and I just kind of brushed it off my shoulders, and I said, "All right, whatever, well, that's what I'm doing." And as our general manager walked up, who was expoing at the time, was pulling down the eggs, he felt the eggs and felt that they were cold and put it back up at the hot station and said, "Hey, can I get 2 more poached eggs?" And my chef decided to turn around, throw a plate on the French top, which completely shattered, which we had to completely break down an entire line and redo, which takes about an hour. But also decided to start throwing a hissy fit like a child, and started throwing saute pans and complaining and using very colorful profanity in an open kitchen. So guests heard these things. So it turned around, and we had multiple complaints that night, well, that morning, and we ended up having to comp off over $500 worth of food.
Jesus.
So later on that week, they ended up relieving the chef of his duties, and respectfully so, and did it in a proper way. But at the end of the day, it wasn't the way that you run the back of house, as you would say, and keeping your ducks in order. So the gentleman took offense to that, of being let go, and in our meeting decided to flip the table of our owners that they were sitting at, that we all had water and other assorted drinks sitting at, spilled them all over the floor, and after he was escorted out of the building, we turned around and they looked at me and they said, "Would you mind cleaning this up and getting ready for service? All right, you are stepping into a new role." So.
Oh, so off it's like you got experience and roles based off other people fucking up because you do your job.
I would say that, but I mean, any person that works in our career as line cooks and chefs, respectfully, know that not every day is going to be a perfect day. Not every day is going to be a great day. So you have to turn around and kind of pick your battles.
Yeah.
And it was just not a battle to pick at that time, especially if he would have been present on the line. But he was not, and he was not present on Expo. So he decided to fly off the handle and kind of end up kind of shooting himself in the foot at that point. And the worst part is, I mean, you see chefs like this so much in our career that just get burnt out, and they work at places where they'll talk to their chefs and they'll talk to their line, and yeah, I'm not burnt out, I'm just frustrated, blah blah blah, and they'll say what they want to say. But at the end of the day, I mean, you get burnt out and you need a vacation and you need time away from a line and you need time away from a kitchen. I mean, especially as a chef, I mean, what's the most important thing about as a person? It's drinking, eating, and having fun.
Right.
So you turn around and, I mean, depending on what time you go into work, most chefs usually work, if you're running brunch on the weekends, you're going in at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're getting off at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, depending on the restaurant. And, I mean, those hours wane on you. I mean, it wanes on relationships. It wanes on personal relationships with people and the people that you work with. So you get down to points where you really look at your life. And, I mean, a lot of these chefs that I've met throughout the years that aren't vetted, that don't have 10 plus years, 20 plus years in this industry, they turn around and they just throw up their hands. They're like, I'm going to go figure out something else to do in this industry. Like, and they move over to food distribution and they move over to different aspects of restaurant work because it's the only thing that they know.
Right, so how old are you now?
I'm 27.
27, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I have been practicing my craft since I was 18 years old. I got professional work after I was 21, 22.
Right.
So I've had about 5 years of professional work. And after that, I kind of moved away from professional cooking.
Right.
And like fine dining. And I prefer to call fine dining professional just solely for the fact that they're just different calibers of cooking, and anybody can go to any big city and have a delicious meal and it be expensive. But are you making it expensive because you're going there because it has a big name and you're going there because of the reputation of the restaurant, or are you going there because of the reputation of the food?
So how did you survive COVID?
Oh, that one was really hard, dude. And so I was working at a fine dining Italian restaurant. It's called Il Giallo down in Sandy Springs, Roswell, in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, in Georgia, but they took care of me very, very well. We decided to do solely to-go food, and I had not reached the point that I was at currently right now as being a sous chef and being a chef that I have worked very, very hard of doing, and I was just one of their line cooks that was extremely dedicated to the craft. And I decided that I was going to make a decision, and my father owned a turf management company, and I had been working for him for about 5 years at that point. I was doing turf management before I came into my job as being a line cook, and that was from about, I want to say, 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning until about 1:30 in the afternoon. Got home, ate something real quick, and then by 2:30 I was at a restaurant. And that's where the majority of my money that I was living in got a very lucky living situation, and luckily I had a chance to slightly save up money, but still had to pay rent. Rent wasn't too terrible during COVID, and I know that for a lot of other line cooks that I worked with, rent got raised, and a lot of them didn't keep their homes. And I had a lucky opportunity because I worked 2 jobs, and my chefs knew that my passion for my craft and everything that I wanted to do, that they gave me an opportunity to come in and work. And I would work about 3 to 4 days a week at the restaurant during the day, just making to-go food and prep meals for people around the metro Atlanta area. And we would have family and friends come around and deliver it, or we would have at-door delivery service where we would just walk the food out to you to your car. And we made everything work as well as we could.
So since now we're in a recession, it's a lot better than COVID, right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. But how has the recession affected like the restaurant business?
Well, I mean, delivery service is a perfect example. I mean, getting food in and getting quality food, I mean, it's extremely rough. I mean, thankfully, Atlanta and a lot of the food purveyors that work here do their due diligence to make sure that we have quality food at the restaurants that I work at currently and restaurants that I previously worked at, that still provide. And, I mean, the worst thing you hear about is truck drivers just constantly just being like, it's not worth it. I have 3 friends currently that are leaving the trucking business because they are just not being provided well enough and being provided well off enough for the hours that they work and everything that they do. And I mean, I'm just so thankful for our purveyors and everyone that I work with now, because they have that reliability. And even the people up in management, if they can't find someone to drive a truck, they'll get behind the wheel and they will deliver food and make sure that we are prepared to service our community, and not even service the community, but I mean, just service the people. I mean, you're never going to have people that don't come out to a restaurant. Right. That's the one thing that is the saving grace about the restaurant industry. And the worst part is that you watch some of these amazing places shut down, like Toro, when the first recession hit back in 2009. The mentor that I trained under, Gary Minnie, he owned that restaurant, and unfortunately he had to close down his restaurant. He was one of the most amazing chefs I've ever worked under in my life. And he ended up having to shut down his restaurant because he just couldn't get business in. And the recession will always hit you in different ways and different forms, I feel like, because you're either not going to get enough money from your job, or you're not going to get enough money because things can't be provided from your workplace. And you get down to a point to where you settle for a little bit less to make a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part about the restaurant industry, because it just seems like a lot of people are doing that right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it very much, and I think we learned a lot. And I appreciate what you're doing out there, food industry. What you guys do is amazing, and it's very difficult. And appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right.